Good morning, I'm Lana, and welcome back to the Safe Spring Saturday Seminar Series. Today's guests, Team 1717244 DAR2-D2, bring a unique perspective and approach to robotics as they hail from the Douglas Anderson School of the Arts.
This creative artistic background really made an impression at the state championship, as DAR2-D2 was presented with the Judges Award. They are a rookie team and are here to share their season with us. Welcome, DAR2-D2.
Thank you. Thank you
guys
so much. So we're going to talk about our presentation and our judges notebook, which were like the main parts of our presentation, what we think helped us the most in our journey this year. And so first, I'm going to go over the presentation and a lot of the specific things we did and little tricks that we think would help anyone. Next slide. Okay, so that's our team, and I'm doing tips for your presentation, how to impress the judges a little bit. All right, so next slide. First of all, we really recommend having a plan. We wrote out a couple pages of notebook paper with every person's name, what they were going to say in their introduction, what they were going to talk about how long it would take. We made it pretty detailed. And that doesn't mean that like we would just read off this plan or this outline. It just meant that everybody knew what they had to talk about and how long they should take. And they could be flexible, and they could kind of, if you had to go a little over, a little under time, it was fine. But just having that really specific outline where people know what they need to stay in the bounds of, it helps your presentation to be very specific and very detailed and look very professional, because you're not all over the place and you're not repeating information. And I think it really made everyone more confident too, that we weren't going to mess up or miss anything. And I think it really helped us in our presentation. All right, next slide. Number two, we really recommend to practice your presentation. So what we did is we stood in the formation that we would have presented in, and we had our teacher, our coaches in front of us, and we set a timer. And the first time we didn't stick to the timer. We just talked as slowly and talked about as much as we wanted to, and then we saw how much time that took. And then we were like, okay, so this needs to go faster. We can cut this out, and then we could kind of scale it back so that we could have as much information as possible, but we didn't go over time or make it too excessive, because you only have about 5 minutes to present, so you really have to find the best information. Another tip is to be comfortable. It's obvious when a team is nervous and uncomfortable presenting. And even if you are nervous, you just got to fake it until you make it. So we kept practicing until we knew that we could stick in the time. We knew that if we went over time a little bit, these are the precautions that we would do to fix that. We made sure that everyone was just loose and having fun instead of making it such a big deal. And I think a lot of that was also because we were a rookie team, and so we really didn't know what we were doing because we'd never done it before. And so I think in some ways that that helped a little bit, because we were taking it not seriously, because we were like, oh, what's the worst that could happen? I mean, they already have low expectations for us, like it'll be fine. But because we were so carefree, I think it projected to the judges that we were comfortable and we were confident and we weren't so nervous and tense over it. And then our third tip is, like I said earlier, have an audience when you present, because it's so different presenting to a wall than it is to real people. So even if that's just your coaches or a team that you're friends with, it helps to be able to stand and talk to people, because if you just, I know a lot of presentations, you get instructed to like find a point on the wall and like stick to it. But in these presentations, I really recommend talking to the judges, because it makes it a lot more personable and it makes you seem a lot more comfortable, and it makes it less of a presentation and more of like a conversation. All right, next slide. This is a big one that was with our team, is to have an image that makes you memorable to the judges and anyone else who's watching your presentation. So if I'll make an example. What we did is a lot of our presentation was about how we integrated STEM and arts, because we do go to a performing arts school. And so everything from our notebook to how we our team and how our capstone looked, that I'll show you later, it all played into this image that we had of integrating STEM and arts. So it makes your team really memorable, and it gives you that one image instead of having different aspects of your presentation. It kind of brings it all together, and it makes it really, really stand out. It helps to show how you use this image in all of your process. So if you used, for example, what we did is we got people from all different arts areas. We used art in the design and the decoration. We used theater in the presentation. We used all these different arts, and we used them to make this, which is unexpected, but it really helped us in the long run. And so if you show how something or some theme or some idea stayed throughout your entire process, it really brings it all together really well. All right, next slide. And just as an example, this was the capstone that we made that our one of our team members, Ann Tran, hand painted. And I mean, I'm obsessed with it because I'm not an art, and so I love it. But I think that doing little things like this to show a common image for your team, it helps to stand out, and it helped to prove to the judges that we're not just another team, like we're special. We have this that brings us all together and that we've used all throughout our process. And I think it did help us stand out. Right, next slide. This one seems obvious, I know, but it really helps to be likable and to be personable, because I think a lot of times it's easy to just see your team as, we're gonna win this, we're good, we're fine, and then you stop caring about everyone else, and you let your ego get the best of you. And whether or not you're intending to, it can project onto the judges, and they can see that. And so be humble and be friendly. And when you go into the room, you don't have to be in like this formation and make this big show. If you want to do that, that's fine, because that can also make a memorable entrance. But I really recommend just going in and making conversation with the judges and saying hello, asking how their day was, saying what you've been doing, just like a couple small talk conversations that kind of introduce yourselves without introducing yourself. Just walk in thinking, I'm happy to be here, I'm easy to work with, and let it permeate throughout the room. You wanna, don't make yourself so robotic. Leave that to the robot. Be human and be relaxed, and don't hold yourself to such a high standard that it makes you seem like above the judges, or like you're not human. You can laugh, you can stumble on your words, like it's gonna happen, and if you own it, it makes such a better impression than if you get embarrassed, or if you pretend like you're perfect and you can't make a mistake. Just relax, it's not a big deal. They want to see you have fun, they want to see you do well. I said this earlier, but make eye contact with the judges. Whether you're speaking or whether your teammate's speaking, you can look at your teammate, or you can look at the judges and make sure you make eye contact with all of them. Relax, use your hands. Just talk like you're regularly talking. Try and make it very, very natural and organic, and have fun, really. As long as you just keep yourself loose and have fun, and these judges want to be your friends. They don't want to make you scared, and they don't want to make you nervous. They want to see you do well. And if you make a mistake, then it's fine, and you just own it and keep going. All right, next slide. Personalize, number 6. So this goes with making that detailed plan that you want to make sure that in order to make your presentation as like real, organic, and successful as possible, make sure that each of your team members stands out and is accurately credited for the work that they did, because nobody can speak about what they did better than the person that did it themselves. So what we did is we introduced ourselves at the beginning of our presentation to make our presentation a little more personable and friendly. And so it would be like, "Hi, I'm Marla. I'm a senior, and I'm in theater." Something like that. And it's quick, and make it, because you don't want it to take up too much time, especially when you have a large team, even if it's just names and grades. But it gives a face to the name, and it makes you seem less of just a flat 2D presentation, and it makes it a lot more personalized. And what we did is we had each member speak about their specialty and what they did, because although everybody does everything really on the team, most of the time I feel like everyone has a focus that they're working on mostly. So whether that's the business side, or you do the coding, or you do the mechanics, you know that best, so you should speak about that. Everyone else can chip in occasionally if they want, but when you're talking about your passion and what you do, it makes such a bigger impression than if someone who doesn't know as much about it is. And we wrote this at the bottom, but how does your life make you unique and help to contribute to the team? So make sure that what you're doing is incredible. And so you want to show everyone that this is what I did. This is amazing. This is how I did it. And it is impressive. So you can show off a little bit. Be friendly, but it's really cool, and talk about what you did, because the judges want to hear it. All right, next slide. This one we really recommend, because although it's 5 minutes, it really helps to bring physical items to kind of break up the speaking. And so we recommend bringing your robot, and driving it around, showing a little bit of its skills. I think we just picked up a block and moved it, but just doing that, it allowed us to explain how we had issues with the arm, and we could say, yeah, the arm wasn't picking it up, so we had to make this counterweight, and we showed the weight, and we showed the robot picking it up to show our issue, and then how we solved it, because that's how we formatted a lot of our presentation. Is we had a problem, and then we explained the solution. Show your capstone. You hand your notebook to the judges at the beginning, but showing like a capstone or any other like physical items that you used along the journey really helped to take it away from the verbal and bring it into more visual and physical. So you have all those aspects in your presentation. And so it makes it a lot more interesting, and it makes it more fun to watch, and it helps them not zone out. And I don't know if they would, but I feel like I would. If I was watching 5-minute presentations over and over, I know I would zone out a little bit. So I think having a physical presentation really helps to keep it interesting. All right, next slide, Sam. I think that's it.
Yeah, okay. So this is where I'll take over and talk about the engineering notebook portion. So obviously I have a lot of information here, but just the main thing is that the engineering notebook is something that you work on over a long period of time, and that needs to show when you give it to them. So, really putting a lot of dedication and making this unique is something that, combined with that presentation, really goes to show how much effort your team has put forth. And then the number one thing, the absolute must-have for every engineering notebook is right here. This FTC engineering notebook guide gives you everything that they're looking for, everything that they're, kind of a rubric. So, I mean, that's invaluable. It's really great. But in here, I'm going to go more into our personal process, and then how we kind of took that upon ourselves and what we did. So for us, there were kind of two elements to this engineering notebook. And the first one, is kind of building off of what Marla said, and building that team image. Before you can even start putting together a final notebook, you have to develop your team and make sure that that shows. And then, of course, the second step is actually making the notebook and then showing all that effort and that team image. So let's get to it. Building a successful image, again, that first step. And then we broke this down into 3 more steps. So the first thing is to build that image or that specialization, what makes you unique. Then that becomes ensuring that the notebook stands out too. This is what you're handing to them. So you have to make sure that you communicate what you want effectively in that notebook. And then finally, you want to kind of show off. This is how you're proving yourselves as a team, and you want to make sure that you can prove your capability in there as well. So step 1, standing out, forming that specialization. And again, Marla did touch on this, but for us, that was stressing our creativity and our problem solving and kind of how we conquered those problems that we experienced as a rookie team. So we really wanted to capitalize off of that and show how that was kind of the core of our team, the core of our season. And the main methods of communicating this would be like through the design of the notebook, through the organization of the notebook, writing, and then some of the visual elements and stuff. Of course, there are so many different things that you can put in the notebook, but that's kind of what we honed in on. And then some other examples, not everyone goes to an art school and not everyone's in their rookie year, but we saw a lot of impressive robots that it was very obvious that they took a lot of time to design them. They probably went through lots of different designs, trial and error. So that's something that a team can focus on, showing their success in that sense. Or maybe you are very strong in your community impact and you make a lot of alliances and you have a strong influence around your community. You're not just some robotics team. That's another image to focus on that can be very strong. So just make sure you take the time to evaluate who you are as a team and then transfer that, build that up. That's kind of what this is about. So making the book stand out. So, assuming your team has now got this image to focus on, how do you put that into a notebook? Well, for us, it was definitely the design of the notebook because that's what the judges are looking at. They can just pick up the notebook and it can be a lot of writing and there can be some very effective writing in there, but you want to make sure that you stand out as a team as well. And design is definitely one way to do that. So, of course, we have like photos and visuals, which are pretty straightforward, but we also included notes that we took during meets, actually some videos and some stills from videos of us working. And then I put like a little doodle in the corner just to like make it a little more playful and show who we are. So make sure you think about different ways that you can craft this notebook, how you can put it together. And don't think of it as just some place to write stuff down. Be as out of the box as you can. I'm sure there are plenty of other things to put in here, but these are just some examples of what we did. Moving on. Okay, now proving yourselves. This probably the most straightforward of the steps, but it is probably the most impactful as well. So more than just making a really nice looking notebook that is really out of the box, you actually have to prove yourselves as a team. That's the point of the notebook. So again, showing that problem solving, resourcefulness, or challenges, or effectiveness as a team, or how good you are at the actual competition tasks, that's where you need to really hone in on showing the judges that you're an effective team, that you're actually doing things during the season. So for us, as Marla mentioned, we kind of focused on physical problems for much of the notebook because we were a rookie team. We didn't really know what we were doing for a couple months. So showing our journey through that experience in our notebook was a big highlight, a big key point. So we did a lot of documentation of, what was our problem? Okay, how did we solve that? So for instance, on the PSAT day, the seniors got together and we just tried to build as much as possible, but we didn't really know what we were working with our kit. So we called Servo City and we were like, hey, we have your kit. Can you just guide us through some steps, or show us some interchangeable parts, stuff like that. So make sure you go a step further than just presenting yourself to the judges, and prove yourself to the judges. Show that you're capable of problem solving, creativity, and that you're an effective team. So now that those are some general tips on how to orient yourselves, this is going to go into our specific notebook and what we did and how that kind of translates. And every notebook is going to be different, especially depending on that focus of the team. So if you're not a rookie and you're not from an art school, it's probably going to look a lot different, but that's okay. We're just trying to show this to get you out of the box, maybe give you a spark that could lead into a light bulb later, that kind of thing. Cover page. This is the first element of your notebook, and it's simple. You just have to have that basic information, but it is also really important because it is the first impression that the judges will see. So, if you hand this binder to your judges, this is going to be a very important first impression. So I guess what I'm trying to say is make sure it's designed well, make sure it centers around that image that you are centered around as well. So for us, we were kind of this rookie team who was creative, and we tried our best, but we were also pretty down to earth and fairly carefree. We were just in this for the experience and everything. So I tried to show kind of this Star Wars theme that we had going on around our name, but also just show that it's nothing too fancy. We're just here to experience, the competition and have fun. The next important thing would be the summary page. And again, look at that engineering notebook guide that's on First's website. That is the most important resource for the summary page because it outlines everything. But other than that, the biggest tip is short and sweet. It might not look like ours is very short or sweet, but I promise you it took a lot of cutting down our entire year into this one page. And you have to be very selective in what you're going to focus on. So we did end up, showing these key points, but there were a lot more in our year. So make sure you know what you're going to focus on, and make sure you highlight pages so that they can be referenced from the summary page. Make sure you put a lot of time into this page because it will set up the rest of your notebook. Table of contents. So this is also pretty straightforward, but again, it can be important in showing that progression or showing the setup of the rest of your notebook. So ours has a pretty logical progression. Who are we? Here's our journey from our meetings and everything. Here's our robot through the engineering section, how it works through the programming section, and then kind of where we plan to go in the future with our business and sustainability plan. So underrated page here, the team page. This is where you're going to introduce yourselves, and beyond the presentation, this is also where you can put a lot of personality into your book. So you can see we've included pictures here of everyone, but Anne and Ned actually have plaster on their faces. Since we go to an art school, we thought it would be really funny to have them matching like that. Just a little playful there. And then Caroline here hugging Ned as our mascot robot. Again, just to show how friendly and creative we want to express ourselves. Other than that, this page is really straightforward, but I think it has a lot of potential to stand out to the judges as well. Oh, and also this is where we started numbering our pages. So that's also important. So the meeting notes section, this is an entire section, and it's probably going to be a really big one as well, because it's just kind of showing compilation of every meeting that you've had. Well, not necessarily every meeting that you've had, but just kind of your journey and what you've written down. So for us, we kind of organized our notes into the duration of the meeting, the goal of the meeting, the summary of the meeting, and then some challenges that we had. And then we also tried to include pictures, notes, a lot of the things that you saw earlier, those elements, those visual. Those are really important. Otherwise, this is going to get very repetitive. So make sure you focus on that. Also, don't feel obligated to include every meeting. If you just put milestone meetings, especially if you're a very large team, you don't want this 100+ page notebook. That's just absolutely going to kill the judges. So just focus on those key meetings that show your journey, because this is a progression. So even if a meeting is a complete failure, it's one big challenge. That's really important to include, because later on you're going to surmount that. And it's important to show that you are a flexible and effective team. The engineering section. So whereas the meeting section is pretty straightforward, you just kind of write down what you're doing. The engineering section is going to differ a lot between teams, because everyone has a different robot, and this is about your robot's design. So I'm going to try to include some general tips here, but just know that there's a lot of creative liberty in this page, and a lot of design liberty. You know, it really just depends on where your robot takes you throughout the season. But the biggest tip is keep focusing on that team image that you have. I took like some designs of our robot through like Photoshop and stuff, and kind of traced them and played with them to get this hand-drawn look to show that we're still creative, and you know, as opposed to some computer generated design, this is kind of like crafted, and that kind of reinforced that rookie creative feel that we wanted to communicate with our team, if that makes sense. But also make sure that you're showing the evolution of your robot and how you overcome challenges and stuff. So we showed different designs of our robot's arm throughout the season, what each one did and how it was an improvement. The programming section. So I was not a coder, so I cannot give any specific tips here, but again, make sure that this is cohesive with your team and with the rest of your notebook. You can include bits of code, or at least explain what your code does. And I think a really important thing is to include the evolution of your autonomous program and continue to show that effectiveness and capability, because it takes a lot of trial and error to develop that. So show that you're capable of making a good program and show the challenge that you have to overcome through that. And then the business section. So again, this is where it can really differ for teams depending on their journey throughout FTC. But some key things to focus on are funding, management, and strategy. Obviously, funding is a big part of business, but also think of your team's management and how, you know, the dynamic that each member has and how everyone contributes to your team. That's a really important part of business as well. And then in terms of strategy, how are you going to approach the competition, and how does your robot address that? And, you know, what are you going to do in relation to other teams? That's also very important. So translating those, you also want to show the impact that you've had, but also your tenacity and creativity. So I know Marla was a really big part of our business approach, I guess, because she secured a lot of funding in the beginning of the year, but it also affected other clubs and other students throughout our school. So that was something we really wanted to emphasize in our business plan, showing that we were greater than just our robotics club and that we have impact, but also showing that Marla had to really secure that, and she had to go out and ask people. That's a lot of tenacity. And then creativity, where are you going to get this money from? You know, show that you're not just asking your parents, you know, be really creative in the people that you ask and how you approach them. And then finally, sustainability. So this is kind of translating everything you've done in the season and then taking it into the future. So it's very, very general. It can be kind of obscure and hard to think about, especially when you're in that mode of, okay, next competition, like what are we going to do? But take the time to think about your future. It's really big. And it'll make a big impression on the judges, showing that you're capable of thinking about your future. So the main thing is just to take a summary of the successful points and the failures of your year, and then think about how you're going to address those same points in the future. And then again, be creative, show that team image. So we personally included our team applications for next year. We kind of typed them out, thought about what we wanted to include in an application. And one big thing was, can someone work with a team? That wasn't really something we thought about in our first year applications, but going into the second year, we realized, you have to be a very unified and cohesive team, and you guys have to work together really well. So that's something that we're going to stress in the future. And then as well, I believe we included like some future recruitment dates, trying to take people from our other robotics competition from CPERCH and convince them to join FTC. We also planned to like go in our school's amphitheater during lunch and kind of have a demonstration of our successes to try to recruit people from there as well. Unfortunately, that didn't happen due to COVID-19, but it's important to include those things in there and show that you are thinking about your team's future and that you're capable of sustaining in the long run. That's it for our presentation. So should we accept questions now?
Yes, those were some really great tips. Thank you so much for sharing them with us. We do have a couple questions for you. If I remember correctly, many members of your team are seniors. Are you planning on doing anything different than this past year to recruit more members in this upcoming season?
Marla, do you want to take that, or should I?
Yes, I think we only had 2 juniors on our team, and the rest of us graduated this year. But I know that they have been working so hard, even over Microsoft Teams, because that's like how our school's been communicating. But they've been having elections, and they've been sending out this application, I think, through emails and Teams to science students and math students. And I think they're really trying to get that application out there. And also, we do have a larger robotics club outside of FTC. And our larger robotics club does CPERCH and other smaller competitions. And so I think that they're going to try and recruit people from that, those smaller competitions, to come and do this FTC. And you get people with that experience in. And I know that they're doing everything they can to to get people, because I know that they're very excited to compete again next year.
If I may add on to that as well, sorry.
Go ahead.
So we don't know how school is going to work in the upcoming year, but we also planned to talk to our administration and make sure that our club can announce in the mornings over school announcements that we're recruiting, and kind of like a rundown of our success and what we're looking for. So that's another way that we're going to try to recruit in the next school year and the early parts of the year, so that we can get people.
I have a question. How was your experience in FTC as a rookie team, and what lessons did you guys learn as a rookie team throughout the year?
Do you want to take that one as well?
I'll go. Okay. It was definitely unique. It was very confusing at first, because we started and we had absolutely no idea what we were doing. I started by going to events at the end of the year last year, because I found FTC through a mutual friend. And so I went to events, and I went to our chemistry teacher, who was the head of the robotics club, and I was like, hey, can we make a club? I don't know what it is, but it seems really cool. And so we were absolutely like completely, like, we didn't know anything about any of this. And so we kind of went in with the mindset of, we're learning this year. We know we're not going to make anything incredible. We're not going to be number one. We're just going to learn, and we're going to figure it out. And maybe in the next 5 years, we can, our school can maybe rise up a couple pegs. It took a lot of confusion. We called hardware stores to figure out how to make stuff, we called the kit providers to figure out how to put together the kit, because a lot of times we couldn't even figure that out. We called different teams. The Crazy Cat Ladies definitely helped us a lot. We sent communication with all kinds of teams. And so it really helped to reach out and don't be so stuck in your bubble of this is my team, we're gonna do this ourselves, because everyone really wants to help you, and it helps to reach out and ask questions. You're not gonna know everything. We didn't even know what kit to buy. It probably took us 2 weeks to figure that out. And we treated this year as a learning year, and we got very, very lucky, and we're very grateful that we were able to go to states. But that's not always going to happen, and we didn't expect it at all, and we're grateful that it happened. But even a lot of the teams that came and talked to us, they're like, yeah, our first year we broke down, we placed in the bottom 10, like, and we did not place high at all. Don't worry. But as a rookie team, we just focused on learning, and we focused on figuring it out. And even it's a kind of a funny story. We didn't realize there was a presentation aspect. I think it was like a preliminary presentation that we had to do, and we didn't realize that we had to do it. So it was me and one other teammate that were the only ones there at that time, because everyone else couldn't make the competition. And so we walked in this room, and they're like, you have 5 minutes to present, and we kind of just ad-libbed the entire thing. And the robot wasn't working, so it was just spinning in circles while we were driving it, and it was fully a mess. But it didn't let it discourage us, and we just kept working, and we ended up having a lot of fun. We really did. Sam, do you have anything to add?
No, you said that incredibly well.
Okay.
So, yeah.
You guys had a great rookie season. What areas would you like to improve on next season?
Sam?
I mean, definitely our physical robot. Now that we know how to work with a kit and what each part does, I think that was the main challenge for us in the beginning of the year. We took so long to put the actual robot together that we were also very delayed in understanding the competition, because by the time we had been to states, we had only really competed in a full competition once, maybe twice. So, you know, understanding that rule book, how to score points, stuff like that was very beyond us at the beginning. So definitely putting together a robot faster is the main element. And then I believe going forward, we will be able to secure more funding as well. So being able to expand our horizons to new parts, new kits, or elements of new kits, I think that's a big thing as well.
I agree. This year we really just had a base model of our robot that was just, you know, we followed the directions and then we added on what we needed. And so this upcoming year, I'm hoping that they will expand outside of that and maybe use a little more creative freedom to experiment with the coding too, as and maybe just experiment and try out new things and make it a little more complex.
We actually have a question from the chat. So how do you handle notebook write-ups? Do you have every person write and manage your content, or only a few people?
That's a good question. So I think having everyone contribute is certainly a good habit, and make sure it's consistent and holistic throughout the year. But inevitably, like, some people are going to contribute more than others. I'm in visual art personally, and I was on the yearbook team. I have a ton of experience with graphic design and putting things together. So that's why I kind of took on the challenge of designing and putting together the notebook. But in terms of the actual information inside, it's very important that everyone contributes to that and that you get everyone's voice, because it will help break up any monotony. And, you know, you have these teammates here to help you. You need to make sure that everyone contributes, that you don't forget anything, and that, you know, everyone puts in as much information as they can. and even beyond just optimizing the notebook, that's also how to be a good team.
Okay, we have one last question. You told us how you practiced your presentation with your coaches. Did you practice for questions that the judges might ask?
I think so. I'm trying to remember. I think that when we would present to our judges, our coaches as our like pseudo judges, they would ask us kind of random questions and make sure that we were able to improvise and speak without having it completely planned, and that we were ready, because we didn't want to have just one person speaking for all the questions. We wanted to make sure that it was very spread out for the entire team and everyone had equal opportunities to speak. So it helped to just ask questions like, how was your process? What were your biggest challenges? And very vague but helpful questions like that help the team to get used to thinking and speaking off the top of their head.
If I may add on as well, make sure your coaches address any weaknesses in your initial information, because they've been there for the ride too. They know what should be in your presentation. So make sure that try to find any flaw in your presentation while you still can, and really nitpick it. But also, as Marla said, like the biggest thing to have is flexibility and comfort. And I think that's what really allowed us to succeed. Yeah.
All right, that is really cool. So that's a wrap for today. Sam and Marla, thank you for spending some time with us this afternoon. And we can't wait to see what DAR2-D2 comes up with next year.
Thank you guys so much for letting us come and talk. It's awesome. And for this whole program. It's really, really cool.
Thanks again, DAR2-D2. We've learned a lot today. Next Saturday, June 6th at noon, SFSSS continues. You won't want to miss it. Thank you for joining us, and we'll